Right, let's dive straight into this explainer, tailored specifically for your AQA A-level psychology revision on dealing with offending behavior. Today, we're breaking down behavior modification in custody. We're going to make absolutely sure you understand exactly how to secure those top marks across all your assessment objectives. If you've ever wondered how prisons actually maintain order, or, whether they genuinely change long-term behavior, well, this is the explainer for you.
Here is our agenda for today. Number 1, AO1, Token Economy Theory. Number 2, AO2, Real-World Applications. Number 3, Evidence and Grave. Number 4, AO3, Evaluating the Approach. And finally, number 5, Final Exam Synthesis. Let's get right to it. Starting off with Section 1, AO1, Token Economy Theory, the theoretical foundation of behavior modification. Okay, the absolute crucial point here to secure those AO1 knowledge marks is that this entire system is firmly grounded in behaviorism. It's the idea that all behavior is learned through the consequences that follow it. When you're writing your outline, you must mention operant conditioning. Prison staff are essentially aiming to strengthen desirable behaviors. Think things like compliance, basic hygiene, or showing up for education classes, and they do this through positive reinforcement. At the same time, they're discouraging unwanted behaviors by withholding that reinforcement. Notice that punishment isn't the main focus here. It's really all about increasing the good stuff.
Now, there's a vital distinction you need to make between tokens and tangible rewards. Tokens are what we call secondary reinforcers. A plastic chip or, say, a tally mark on a chart has literally zero intrinsic value to a prisoner. You can't eat it and it won't let you call your family. But because they can be exchanged for primary reinforcers, which are the things that actually satisfy a basic human need, like extra food, some gym time, or family visits, the token itself takes on an incredibly powerful reinforcing quality.
So if you're asked in the exam to describe the process of actually setting one of these up, remember these 3 sequential steps. First off, the target behaviors have to be crystal clear and observable. You can't just reward someone for, being good. You have to reward them for a specific action, like making their bed or following a direct staff instruction. Second, the tokens have to be awarded contingently and right away. Immediate reinforcement is absolutely vital for strengthening that learning process. And third, there has to be a clear, preset reward menu so the inmate knows exactly what their secondary reinforcers can actually buy.
Moving on to Section 2, AO2, Real-World Applications, moving from behaviorist theory to prison practice. Imagine for a second the immense physical and psychological discomfort of early addiction recovery. It's intense. By awarding tokens for clean drug tests and group therapy attendance, staff in a specialist rehabilitation wing are actually helping individuals tolerate that withdrawal discomfort while they build pro-social habits. They can then exchange these tokens for extra phone minutes to maintain family contact, which, by the way, is a massively important protective factor against reoffending. It's honestly a perfect AO2 application of operant conditioning supporting real rehabilitation.
And to really push for those top AO2 marks, you should definitely map this straight back to other areas of your specification. For instance, link it right back to Skinner's shaping in the approaches topic. You can use this to demonstrate how complex behaviors are built gradually through successive approximations. Or, link it to psychopathology. Just like systematic desensitization uses reinforcement to replace fear with relaxation, token economies use environmental control to replace antisocial behavior with cooperation. It's all connected.
Let's look at Section 3, Evidence and GRA, critically evaluating the foundational research.
We can really track the evolution of this research over time. It starts from the early days of 1968 in psychiatric wards, moves straight into controlled correctional environments in the 70s, and finally into critical ethical reviews in the 80s. We're going to break down the first 2 foundational studies using our GRAV criteria so you have exactly what you need in your back pocket for your essays.
Let's dive into this 1968 study by Ilon and Azrin. They're basically the originators of the token economy. Now, looking at the G in GRAV, generalizability, while they definitely prove the power of reinforcement, you must point out the low generalizability for criminology here. Why? Because it wasn't actually a prison study. It was conducted on patients with chronic schizophrenia. However, looking at the ANR, it actually has very high applicability and reliability. It laid down the precise applied behavior analysis methodology using strict structured reward contingencies and direct observation that prisons would eventually adopt.
Jumping forward to 1976, Hobbs and Holt offer much higher applicability for your exam answers. This is because they directly tested the concept in a correctional environment, specifically with adolescent males in a youth training center. They found marked increases in desirable behavior compared to a control unit. But pay close attention to the reliability aspect here. The study highlighted the massive need for consistent staff implementation. The behavioral gains were only strong when the staff delivered the reinforcement reliably. If staff are inconsistent, it all falls apart. This is a brilliant point to carry forward into your AO3 evaluation.
Which brings us to Section 4. AO3, Evaluating the Approach, Strengths, Limitations, and Ethical Considerations.
So, token economies are incredibly successful at managing short-term behavior inside custody. They create order, they reduce conflict, and they genuinely make prisons safer. But there is a major limitation here. We call it the behavioral cliff edge. Once an offender steps out of those prison gates and into a chaotic community, all those secondary reinforcers completely disappear. Without that stable reinforcement structure in the real world, those learned pro-social behaviors decay pretty quickly.
Despite that cliff edge, there are excellent AO3 strengths you can argue. Aside from the really strong scientific foundation and operant conditioning, a major strength you should definitely highlight is inclusiveness. Think about it for a second. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, requires high verbal engagement and a lot of self-reflection. Token economies just don't. This makes them highly accessible and absolutely ideal for offenders with learning difficulties, literacy challenges, or neurodevelopmental conditions like ADHD or autism, which sadly are often heavily overrepresented in prison populations. But, as always in psychology, you must impartially balance those strengths against the ethical and conceptual criticisms. As noted by Ali and Pullen, this approach can heavily infantilize offenders. You're essentially treating adults like children by controlling their access to the most basic privileges. Critics often refer to it as manipulative bribery, quite frankly. Furthermore, if staff are inconsistent in how they award these tokens, it directly leads to something called learned injustice and a lot of resentment. But perhaps the most profound conceptual limitation is that this approach is entirely superficial. Sure, it changes external behavior, but it completely ignores the cognitive, emotional, and trauma-based roots of why the crime was actually committed in the first place.
Let's wrap this up with Section 5, Final Exam Synthesis, tying it all together for the conclusion. Ultimately, token economies are excellent institutional behavior managers, but they are not true rehabilitators. For lasting change, they really must be integrated with deeper therapies like CBT, and they have to be supported by robust post-release programs. It leaves us with a critical, almost philosophical question to ponder at the end of your essays. If we only use reinforcement to ensure compliance inside a cell, are we actually rehabilitating individuals for society, or are we simply training them to survive a cage?